Hey guys, Galanta here and welcome back to another video. In this video, I've decided to go ahead with an idea that has been lingering in my head for quite a while. We all love to play games, but there's the odd few of us which wanted to make a game of our own, you know? Because of this, I'm going to create a game for me and others to enjoy, hopefully. Before we go ahead, if you find yourself coming back to my videos quite often on the daily, you probably like my content, be sure to press that subscribe button. You're already coming back to the videos anyway, so pressing the button will remind you when I next upload. Anyways, let's get into the video. Starting off, we need to know what we're going to make a game about. I want to base it around the theme of psychological horror. When making a game concept, I like to ask myself, what message am I trying to get across to the player? To get a grasp of the message that I'm trying to get across, I need to know what goes into a psychological horror game first. To do this, we're going to split the game concept up into two halves. One half will explore the tropes in the game based around the elements of horrific psychology, so basically what you expect to see in a game, such as that. And the other half will involve the story behind the game. We really want to hit the player's heart when we make this game, and a structured story will do a good job at ensuring it does. First of all, let's focus on the story. The three questions we're going to ask ourselves before we make the story are as followed. Number 1 will be, what is the story about? Number 2 will be, how will the story impact the player? And number 3 will be, why have we chosen this topic? For this game, the story will be about the effects of drugs. This answers our first question. To answer how it will impact the player through its story, we need to make the player acknowledge that drugs can be addictive in the real world and that they can cause everlasting effects. Because of this, it's an absolute necessity to teach the player about the bad side of drugs. This answers our second question. On the surface, it may seem like a rather plain idea. However, this can expand in any direction we want, as we are given the ability to depict the severity of drugs and why it's not something to be looked down on in any community. This answers our third question. Now, I could go into detail about the story, but I think it'd be best to leave some parts out, just so that there's something to actually look for in the game, when it releases hopefully. Now that we have the baseline of what the story is going to be about, we need to figure out what elements of a horror game fit nicely into it. For me, this is arguably the tougher part of creating a game concept. After a while thinking though, I have decided on the 3 key elements that the game concept should show in the game. The first key element will involve death. The reason I've chosen this is because, well, overdosing drugs equals death. Potentially. Death is a pretty serious theme which can evoke the emotions of the player if executed correctly. Because of that, this will be the number 1 key element of the game. The second key element will include violence. Drug abuse affects the mood of their victims, making their violent outrages rather somber, muddled up with a hint of confusion obviously, unable to tell why they feel the way they do. If this game was to include voice acting, then this would be a very powerful element to further explore in the game. Finally, the third key element will be based around psychosis. Basically, drug-induced psychosis causes delusions or hallucinations. This makes utilising psychosis very handy, and therefore it will be implemented into the game. Now that we have the tropes and baseline of the story, we are ready to move on to making the game. Before we do that though, if you've made it this far into the video without leaving a like, then what are you doing? You clearly liked the video, so leaving a like would be widely appreciated. Anyways, back to the video. Now, the planning was the easy part, and the shortest too. But when it comes to modelling, a lot can go wrong. Well, wait a minute, how do I add a cube? Okay.
Nice.
Now to select a face. There we go. Now if we just extrude like so. Wait, it's not meant to do this. Wait a minute. Let me try cutting it like this. Okay. Yeah, looks good. Oh, come on! Yeah. It's a bit tricky. The first thing I'm going to design for the game will have to be meaningful. So, I modelled a rubber ducky. All jokes aside though, I went and created a few assets that would be added into the game, and they turned out looking alright, at least, so that's good. Anyways, sit back and enjoy this small montage I put together, purely to showcase the process of me modelling a few of the assets that will ultimately appear in the game, when it's complete. Those are a couple of the assets you should expect to see in the game. They're really simple currently because it's likely that I'll have to build dozens of assets, so fleshing out the idea of each one would at least be a better starting point over spending hours on a single model and then forgetting the rest. Anyways, that'll be all for this video. If you enjoy content like this and would like to see more, subscribing to my channel will notify you when I next release a video like this. Goodbye.